cigarettes, and it was like poker night, So in my subconscious brain later, it was like, oh, poker that's how you get attention for your dad, or that's how it's a very it
Gotcha.
became. So I was programmed to this social, it was my weekend activity when I was like 5, 6 years old for a short period there.
So did
So
you learn poker from your dad then,
yeah, I was
or from
playing.
his
We were
friends?
playing like no limit low ball with these pros. When I was like 6 years old, he'd come on the weekend and beat me up, and but
What
then
what was
So you
beating you up? Like how big? I'm sure it was friendly to them, but like for you, 6 year old, I mean, you don't have that much of allowance, do you? I mean,
yeah, right.
jeez.
yeah, it wasn't really until my uncle. I had also an uncle that was a gambler. Like my dad was a pretty good poker player and an intellectual, and he dropped out of poker later. And when I wanted to when I dropped out of college to play poker, he warned me against. He's like, "This is just a cycle, and it's just for fun, and you're never going to get anywhere with this, and blah blah blah." But I had an uncle that was a Pan 9.
I don't know.
It was a popular game in California back in the day. It's kind of like gin rummy. I don't even remember how to play it at this point, but he was mostly a pan player at the Oaks Club in Oakland.
Is Pan 9 like you play against other people, or you're playing against the house and
Yeah, you
it's
play against
advantage?
other people.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that was the main game, but I think he played poker also. But he was just a kind of a deadbeat gambler and always losing. And then my grandma would always give him money, and then he would lose it and go broke. And one time she got tired of giving him money, and he was down and out, and so he came and stayed with us. And this was when I was like 10 or 11,
Okay.
and so he had nothing to do, and so we just started playing backgammon and chess and Scrabble and poker and all these games, and we were just and he was like beating me up and needling me, and this really really helped me for when I became a poker player because
I bet. Yeah.
he was just using psychological warfare and making fun of me, and we would play Scrabble and he would just beat me every time, and he'd be like he would uh he's like, I think you're going to win this game. Don't challenge this word. You really got a good game going here. I don't want you to blow your chance to finally beat me. But of course, he was,
Bluffing on a
reversing,
word.
Yeah.
bluffing on that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then he'd get way ahead in the game, and then he'd start trading in the queen, the Q's and the Z's. Like, I'm going to beat you with all 1 point letters. I'm never going to use a big number. And
Jeez.
he was just pounding me and pounding and beating me every game. And then we would play backgammon. He was up thousands of points, and we'd poker, and he was just beating the hell out of me in all these games and just picking on me. And then finally he was there for about 3 or 4 weeks. Then finally I beat him one game of Scrabble, and he got all mad and quit and left, So, but
It's like
I
when
know a lot of people like that. Yeah.
I know it was your
yeah,
uncle, but it's like when you're playing against your dad for years and years, and then the
Yeah.
first time you beat him, then you stop playing, and then it's over.
but he really put me through the ringer with the psychological warfare and just hammering me and playing his best and using every trick he had. And when I first got into the big games in LA, it was like that. Like everyone was picking on me because I was a new kid or the
Sure.
young kid, and they were just, the first time I sat down in a big game, the guy was just went on this big tirade, like, how does this young kid get this money? He must be sucking dick for money, and just laying into me right away before I was even stuck. He should have waited until I was losing to start with that. But,
Yeah.
I mean,
but I was like, oh, this is just like my uncle.
yeah, maybe you got one of those faces. I don't know. Maybe you got a sucking dick for money face. I don't know. Probably not. I don't see it if it
Have you
is.
heard of Jimmy?
Oh God.
No.
He was a legendary high limit player from back in the day that nobody really heard of. You should have him on here if you could ever come across him. But he was one of the top 10 Go players in the world.
Okay.
Very, very sharp, Korean guy. He was also one of the reasons I really was attracted to poker back in those days. The pro poker players were such amazing characters. They had so much charisma and they were just funny. And, like this guy, he was, top 10 in the world, Go player. He was a top like Taekwondo fighter.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, and he came from, and he was a top poker player, and he was just funny also, the way he would needle everybody. It was a lot of, the psychological warfare back then was pretty fun.
And I don't want to jump too hard ahead in the future or ever, but I do want to touch on this, and I don't want to forget it. So do you think today's poker or gambling is like kind of lacking that that kind of back and forth that like I don't know, like you say, giving each other shit and
I
kind
don't
of testing
know.
people.
We'll see. I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, I would say no, not. But that's
Right.
when I dropped out of poker. 'Cause, like, I didn't really like the way that poker was going. Like, I feel like all those old charismatic characters worked so hard to kind of build up the game. Well, first, you had the people before my era that were very charismatic, but they were also, a little shady. There was a lot of cheating going
Sure.
on. So then my generation, we were like, well, we're not as cool and funny as those guys, but we're going to be like the ethical, honest. We're going to, gamblers always had a bad name, so we're going to be more honest, and everyone's going to like us because we're the honest gamblers. And we used to play with Jerry Buss, and he loved us because he was like, "You guys are so much more honest than the businessman." And so we tried to be my generation of, like, Ted Forrest and John Hennigan and that '90s group. We tried to be the most ethical players, and we tried to be, funny and entertaining as the Chips and the Danny Robinsons and all those guys, but we weren't quite as funny and cool as them. But at least we were more honest. And then once, I feel like it was the combination of that sort of blew up poker. And then in the early 2000s, when, all the millennials who'd grown up in the computers and had no social skills, and they had these entitlement issues. And so my experience, around, 2010 or whatever, was like they just have these entitlement issues. They don't have any social skills. They're not trying to add to the game. They're not being like overly honest, or, and they're not also not funny, and they're just sort of just walking in
Yeah,
like
they're vacuums. Yeah.
they were just vacuums. And
Yeah.
so like, and then, so that was one big problem, why poker went downhill, I think.
Yeah, it's funny you say entitlement issues because I was thinking while you were saying it, kind of the arc of poker as you're describing it, where it's like you got to convince kind of people to come and gamble with you and play poker. So you have to be kind of entertaining. And then once you succeed in that and you push it out into the boom, the moneymaker boom and all of that, then everybody else comes in and the first live games they play are amazing. And just all the games are amazing. And then they just think they're entitled to great games all the time without any work. So now
Yeah.
we're kind of like slipping back into that previous arc where I think a lot of people, at least our age and in between, are kind of realizing like, oh, I should probably, not be a robot. I should probably be at least some level of entertaining. I should add some value to people spending time with me if I think I'm going to win in this poker game. So,
Well, those are more thoughtful players, and like I do think poker is kind of lacking on like the in betweens, the ones that can self realize okay, like I need to perpetuate this instead of the people who are just like, oh, poker's perfect for me. I don't like people, but I like money and I like puzzles. Perfect. This is great. I can just sit here and be quiet and
no,
make money.
you're 100% right. But at the higher stakes, I'm saying people are
Yeah,
realizing
fair.
again
I agree with that. But
that it needs to turn the corner and you need to, be something for the game. I mean, maybe I'm spoiled because I get to play in our game all the time.
sure,
But
you are spoiled. You
playing
play with
some-
me.
But when you compare American culture to other cultures in other countries, we're lacking a certain social outlet, wouldn't you say? I mean, a lot of people, they are working on the computer, they're at home, they're not, we don't have as many children in this country. There's just not a lot of social structure, and people, sometimes their only social interaction is they're at the store buying something. So poker is a social outlet. I think that's a big function of it. And uh, I know when I got into poker, I had very poor social skills, so it was a comfortable place. When I first started, I was quiet also. I was like, I want to learn how to be social, and I would hear the people with their stories and the jokes, and I'm like, wow, it was kind of like a social learning experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely stolen a lot of jokes and stories through my 20 years of playing poker professionally, and it's probably an inherent trait because, like, yeah, I was an engineer as well. Like, I wasn't popular or anything like that. It was just kind of a learned skill, I guess, over the years. I don't know how you were as a kid as much, but
yeah, no. So I was pretty similar, very quiet,
Yeah.
like not a lot of social interaction past like, whatever, whenever we got dial up in our town and I could just go on the computer. So, but no, it's definitely a social outlet for people. I mean, that's why you see so many like socially awkward people playing poker and they're like trying to figure it out. It seems like, I mean, some of them are. Some
Yeah,
are
it's a
just
it's a good like training grounds to learn social skills, because like it's okay to just sit there and be quiet, so you
Yeah.
don't really have to, you're not under pressure to perform socially, or, it's not like you're jumping on some show and you're on like a dance contest and you
Right.
have to perform in front of
You don't
everyone.
have to put a joke